about steep turns today, and the objective with steep turns is we want to develop our smoothness of controls. We also want to develop our orientation with the outside references outside the airplane, and then we need to work on your uh, division of attention with the flight controls and the hazards outside the aircraft. If you look here, this is what a bird's eye view of the maneuver looks like. You're going to start right down here with the downwind or like a tailwind, and you're going to want to fly and enter a left turn into a 360, and then you're going to do a right turn at 45-degree angles of bank. All right, and then you're going to continue out. So some things that you need to know before we go into the maneuver is load factor. When we're dealing with these steep banks of 45-degree angles, it's going to increase the load factor of the airplane by about 1.4 times. And the problem with that is the aircraft is going to have an increase in their stall speed, which is pretty dangerous, which is why we need to make sure we're maintaining level flight attitude, and we're also maintaining proper power, so that way the airplane flies at a reasonable speed. Okay. Beginning with the maneuver, or pre-maneuver before we go into it, you're going to want to make sure the aircraft is at about 25,000 RPM. Complete the before landing checklist and complete your clearing turns. We're going to want to make sure we're at an altitude about 1,500 feet or higher than that. And most importantly, you're going to need to pick a point, because this is a visual reference maneuver. You're not just going to be looking inside your cockpit, you need to make sure you're looking outside the airplane as well. So we're going to select a mark at the end over here. So this is going to be your mark down here. All right. So once we complete all our before landing checklist and the airplane's ready to go, we're gonna fly. We're gonna line our airplane with this mark in front of us. We also should take note of the horizon, because the horizon is gonna help us maintain that turning our bank angle as well. Okay. We're coming in. We want to make sure we're at below minimum maneuvering speed or at it. We don't want to be any higher. And we're going to come in and we're going to start our left turn at 45-degree angle bank. Now you're going to notice some things when you start doing this. First things first, about 30 degrees, you're going to start noticing the nose You're going to start noticing that nose is going to want to come down. All right, and that's when you need to apply adequate back pressure to the airplane. You're also going to notice that the airplane is going to want to continue to turn. This is called a left turn tendency, and it's due to the overbanking, and the airplane wants to keep going. But it's also accommodated by left turning tendencies of the aircraft, such as the torque of the airplane. This is a jet, but imagine there's a propeller at the end of it. As that propeller is turning right, it's the equal and opposite force of that is going to want to turn the airplane left, which is going to be making the airplane want to bank more. And if you don't control it, could lead to an inverted airplane, which is not good. Of course, you can combat this with proper opposite aileron and rudder control to make sure the nose is straight and stabilized. Okay, so that's just at the very beginning. So we're gonna begin our bank to 45 degrees. All right, we're gonna start pulling that nose up and make sure we're adding proper aileron control and make sure that the airplane doesn't overturn. And then we're gonna hold and maintain that heading. Now, a really good trick that will help you out, because this is a visual maneuver, is when we're dividing our attention outside the cockpit, you want to take a mental picture of what the airplane is doing. And there's two things that the airplane will usually do. It will so here's our cockpit view, and our window is sideways. All right, the horizon, so the line that we see outside the airplane, is either going to come from the top of the dash and over, or it's going to come from the middle of the dash and over. All right. So when you start your turn, you're going to notice that the horizon intersects the middle of the dash or the corner of the dash. And you take that mental picture, and that way you're able to maintain that turning heading as long as the horizon is intersecting the dashboard at that right angle. That's a really helpful way to do this maneuver, and it's what I would personally do. So as you're maintaining that mental picture, you're turning and turning and turning, all right, you're also going to notice that you're losing airspeed, because as you're pitching up, you're increasing your angle of attack. That's also going to increase your drag. Now, with an increase in drag means a decrease in airspeed. So this is where your power control is going to come in. You're going to just add a little bit of power every so often while you're glancing your airspeed, because it will go down. You need to make sure you watch it. And you're just going to add just a little bit of power control to make sure that you maintain level attitude or altitude when you're flying the maneuver. All right, so we're turning at 45 degrees. We're adding proper pitch. We're increasing power. We got our mental picture. All right, and we're coming around. We're holding that altitude, and we're going to come. So now our mark is going to come into view as we complete the 360 degree turn. Now, we aren't going to hold 45 degrees the entire time until the mark's right in front of us, because what's going to happen is you're actually going to keep turning by the time you're level. So when you're about 30 degrees or about 15 degrees away, you're going to want to start slowly turning back to level flight. So about here, you're going to want to start leveling the airplane out. So by the time your airplane's level, that mark is right in front of you, and your wings are straight level. And then you're going to want to continue to the right. So it's 2 turns. So you start one left, you always go left first, and then you're going to go right. All right, and it's going to be the same thing, except on the right turn, you're going to have to deal with less left turn tendencies and on that right turn, okay? When we are doing this maneuver, there are some ACS standards. So you can't go plus or 100 or plus or minus 100 feet during this maneuver. We're also going to want to make sure we maintain within plus or minus 10 knots of what airspeed we started with. Other thing too is 5 degrees of bank. So we maintain our 45 degree bank. And finally our heading of 10 degrees. So if we start on this heading, we want to make sure we're within 10 degrees of entering that heading. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the common errors with steep turns. There's 4 of them, and that goes... Alright, so now we're going to talk about the common errors with steep turns. There's 4 of them. There's going to be, typically people will use improper pitch and pitch and bank and power, pitch, bank, and power. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the common errors with steep turns. There's 4 common ones that most pilots run into. Proper use of pitch, power, and bank on the entry and exit of the maneuver. Improper use of flight controls when flying. Another one is unable to correct or change altitude during the bank, and of course people lose their orientation while they're flying. Now, a lot of these errors can be avoided pretty much at the very beginning of your turn. Like I said earlier, when you start that bank, when you start the bank to 45 degrees, all right, you're gonna start losing altitude as soon as you reach about 30 degrees. And so if you wait till you get to 45 degrees to start fighting or opposing those forces, your airplane's going to already be way uncoordinated, and you're just going to be fighting it the entire time you're doing the maneuver. So it's very important that at the very start of the maneuver, as you're banking and making it to 45 degrees, that you already start putting in some back pressure to accommodate for the increased load factor, okay? So if you're able to do that, you're going to already start off with a good foot and be at a proper altitude. Now, let's say you do lose altitude or something like that, and you need to get back to your proper altitude so that way you don't break your standards. Very small corrections is key in this maneuver. If you make too big of a correction, not only could you, not only are you going to, go right through your altitude, but you could also damage the airplane by making, sudden or big movements that the airplane, especially when the airplane is dealing with such a large load factor. And finally, when we come to the last area is losing orientation. And now don't forget, this is a visual maneuver, meaning we are using our outside references outside our aircraft, which would be our mark. So if you're looking inside the airplane the whole time, not looking outside, you're not going to see your mark, and you're probably going to be turned past your mark before you level off. Okay? So it's very important that you divide most of your attention outside that aircraft, and you use your mental pictures to make sure the airplane maintains at a level altitude. And then every so often, you'll take a quick glance at your altitude, at your altimeter and your airspeed to make sure that they're all good. All right, thanks for watching.